Let's go. What's going on, everybody? JT, I got Dub here with me. Dub's actually in transit, so we're going to bring him in here in just a second. This is in the arena. We got to do this reaction video. Last night, unexpected. Shout out, before we get into anything, shout out to Terence Crawford, unified, undisputed welterweight champion of the world. The first undisputed welterweight champion in the modern era. The second fighter behind Clarissa Shields to be undisputed in two different weight classes. He was undisputed at light welterweight. Now he's undisputed at welterweight. Still undefeated, 35 years of age. Totally last night outboxed, outclassed, and just put a good beating on Errol Spence. I mean, coming into the fight, there was no way that I thought Errol Spence would show up in the way he did. Again, a lot of folks are talking online, a lot of all of a sudden Crawford fans, which again, the fandom is going to come because he deserves it. Pound for pound, definitely number one, number two on anybody list. He shouldn't be no lower than that. But, folks are talking like, Spence wasn't a unified champion before last night who had never touched the canvas. I was very surprised by his performance and also surprised by the lack of adjustments made throughout the fight. It looked bad, And I think after that second round where he had the flash knockdown, which you can see here on the screen, Crawford caught him as he lunged, like he did much of the fight, lunging. And Crawford caught him and then caught him in his ear, knocked off his equilibrium, as he said in his own words. And Spence touched the canvas for the first time in his career, to be followed up by touching it two more times later in the fight. And Bud got the stoppage. I would just say my thoughts all around. Bud was just a better man last night. I mentioned in our preview video and our prediction video, although I didn't see that scenario happening, there was a scenario where Crawford would just outbox Spence. He would take the advantages he had with his speed. I mentioned that he was a guy built from the ground up, so he's got a lot of power in his legs. He ate a lot of the shots that Errol threw to him, a lot of those jabs. And what his trainer mentioned after the fight was that their strategy was to take away Errol's jab by jabbing and coming forward towards him and then breaking down from there. And they did. They effectively took away his jab, his best punch. It was almost like Crawford was Spence's kryptonite. There was nothing he could do in the ring last night that was effective. And, it showed that Crawford was just light years ahead on last night. Now, does that mean that we will see that again in a rematch? I don't know. But I know that there is a rematch clause. It's the loser's choice. Spence talked about after the fight how difficult it was to make 147. He's hoping they can work it out at 154. Crawford then came to the post-fight press conference and said that he's okay with 154. So I think we'll see this fight again at 154. If it happens immediately, it won't be for any belts because neither one has any belts at 154. But it was just a very, very surprising night, but a great night for boxing to have these two guys put it all on the line. Spence, I think, took it like a champ. And like I said, hats off to Crawford. We knew what type of dog he was. He had Eminem bring him out. And, he handled business from there. Doug, what were your thoughts on what you saw last night?
He did a pretty good recap of the fight. Here on our channel, we had Spence winning in, round 8 or going the distance. That didn't happen. In fact, Spence hit the canvas 3 times. But salute to both guys. Both of them are warriors, man, gladiators. And, we're bystanders. We couldn't go into that boxing ring and even make it through 4 rounds. Boxing is a very intense combat sport. So those guys are well prepared. It's just one guy was better, and that was Terence Crawford. So nonetheless, if I was Errol Spence, I wouldn't even exercise the rematch clause.
You wouldn't exercise a rematch clause, not even as a competitor?
Nah, man. It was bad last night. It was really bad. I mean, you had a surgeon performing, some incisions on his patient last night, and the surgeon was Bud Crawford.
For sure.
It just did not look good. I didn't get a chance to watch the full fight. I definitely got bits and pieces through highlights, but it did not look good. I was pleasantly surprised to see how Bud Crawford dominated the fight, to your point. But we'll see, man. To your point, Errol Spence is a competitor. He probably will exercise clause.
Right.
But man, that fight last night was one-sided, and it did not. It looked like a massacre.
Yeah, it looked pretty bad. Like, I feel like something might have been off, whether it was something that we'll ever find out, who knows. But it seems like something was off. Like, I've never seen Spence show up in that way, especially for a big fight, and I've watched a lot of his big fights here lately. And maybe it was just that flash knockdown in the second round after getting his equilibrium knocked off. He just never regained his legs under him the rest of the fight.
Definitely didn't look right in the second round. Even when the ref kind of how they just testing to make sure they're good. I don't think bro was good, bro.
I don't think so. Like, something
after that hit, bro.
Yeah, something was off. And like I said, or like you said, Bud was just a surgeon. They had a game plan. Hats off to his trainer. Because they had that game plan to take away Errol's jab. And they had the game plan for them to have a strong jab coming forward. And I mean, really, I felt like I've never really noticed a resemblance, but there's a slight resemblance between Bud Crawford and Tommy Hearns. You're going to have to put them side by side in a frame to just – they look a lot alike, and he looked a lot like Tommy Hearns last night in the ring in terms of just that lightning quick jab and the power coming behind it. He was throwing some heavy shots. I mean, every shot that connected did damage. It was wild to see, And like I said, for some reason, there was never an adjustment made by Derrick James in terms of, Errol was not able to avoid those shots. It's almost like he didn't see the shots coming. I think after the fight in the ring when they were interviewing, but he mentioned the first knockdown. He was like, I hit him with a left. He didn't see it coming. And he just totally won the mental battle, I believe, prior to the fight. And he broke him, Both of these guys said they would break the other. And he did just that. He broke Errol Spence last night. Errol and the team are going to have to go back to the drawing board. Like I said before, for a lot of the folks that have been sending me text messages responding to our videos, let's not forget, this is still a champion. I'm sure they'll go back to the drawing board. I'm sure they'll make adjustments. I'm sure there'll be more great fights that we see out of Errol Spence. This isn't the last that we'll see of Errol Spence. I mentioned it in our preview that this was probably the last that we would see of Errol Spence at 147. It is. He was adamant after the fight that he wanted the rematch to take place at 154. He talked about the difficulties of making weight at 147. And so I do think that's the last time we see Errol Spence at 147. But he has the frame to go up to 154, to go up to 160, and, possibly be as effective at those weights as he has been at 147 throughout his career. And, so I'm sure they'll go back to the drawing board. But it's not about Errol Spence. It's about Bud Crawford. He put on a legendary performance. He's etched himself in the history books even more so than he was before. And, he put the world on notice that the kid from Omaha is the real deal, So shout out to Bud Crawford. Omaha. You got to hit that Peyton. Shout out to Bud Crawford, man. That was If anybody has ever put on a dominant performance in a championship fight like that, I've never seen it. I've never seen that type of performance. I mean, just a humble guy. All he wanted to do after the fight was just thank God. I can definitely salute that. The guy's a class act, and one of the greatest boxers in the world. So hats off to him. Pound for pound, he showed that he's up there with everyone else. There's no sleeping on him. And, I'm looking forward to see what he does next, whether that's going to 154 and fighting Errol, going to 154 and challenging Charlo, depending on how that fight comes out with him and Canelo. But I will mention him and Charlo and Canelo are fighting at 168. So he's moving up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo. So he'll still have the belt at 154. So at some point, he's going to have to face Crawford because Crawford pointed to him in the crowd several times during the fight. And I think he knows that he's next up. So it's going to be interesting to see. Derrick James has a stable of fighters, but now that stable is being threatened by one man who's on a destruction path. So we'll see what comes next for Terence Crawford. It's in the arena, man. Give us that CLS treatment. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll be back.